And we're kicking off today with NXT, as it was a few weeks ago that Becky Lynch shocked the world by challenging Tiffany Stratton for the NXT Women's Championship, a title Lynch would go on to win. Since winning the title, Lynch made it her mission to defend against rising stars in the company, such as Tegan Nox and Indy Hartwell, but this week's NXT proved to be her toughest challenge. Facing Lyra Valkyria in the main event, both women put on an incredible match as Lyra brought the fight to Lynch, who was left on the back foot on many occasions. Valkyria proved her resilience by kicking out of the manhandle slam, and when Lynch attempted the move again, the Valkyrie was able to reverse her and get the win and the gold. Lynch struggled to contain her emotions after the loss, but handed the title to Valkyria and hugged her, showing the new champion a ton of respect in what was a star-making performance. The story of the match was Valkyria always having the number of Lynch, showing how she'd scouted Becky over the years, as she counted Lynch's best shots with precision. It's also very rare to see anyone kick out of the manhandle slam, and Valkyria doing just that is another sign WWE's creative team have big plans for the new champion. NXT must carry this momentum forward, as it's time to let Valkyria, arguably the best female wrestler in NXT, fly, and she now has a ton of challengers that could help define a lengthy title reign. As for Lynch, she did a ton for NXT during her brief reign as champion, and we wouldn't be surprised if Valkyria is used on Raw in addition to NXT. The main event of NXT Halloween Havoc Night 1 had fans gripped from the get-go, and there was one person among the crowd who was watching very closely. Before the match started, Jade Cargill showed up to a loud pop and sat in her own private section of the crowd to observe the two talented women. As we've mentioned, Lynch handed the title to Valkyria after the match in a passing of the torch moment, and Cargill could be seen watching the wholesome scenes. However, during the post-match festivities, Lynch gave Cargill a death stare, seemingly hinting at a feud between the two when the time is right. It was during a recent Raw that Lynch and Cargill were introduced, but Lynch told WWE's hottest free agent to get in line, as the man was more interested in her wealth of challengers in NXT. With Lynch's NXT tenure up, perhaps Cargill will be next to feud with Lynch on Raw. And do you like this idea? And what did you make of this week's title change? Sound off in the comments. From 2016 to 2021, WWE used Survivor Series to pit Raw superstars against SmackDown superstars, with the champions of the respective brands facing off. As we've previously reported, there are no plans at this time to do a Raw vs. SmackDown War Games match, but what about pitting SmackDown's top name against Raw's #1 star? During a recap of Raw on Wrestling Observer Radio, Bryan Alvarez said that this week it seemed WWE was setting up a Roman Reigns vs. Seth Rollins match, but that isn't the plan right now. It was made clear that Roman Reigns vs. Seth Rollins is not the plan for Survivor Series 2023, but Alvarez suggested that while the match won't be imminent, it could happen down the line. At this time, neither Rollins nor Reigns have been confirmed for a match at Survivor Series, and while the pair could one day face off in the ring, it won't be on November 25th in Chicago's Allstate Arena. Earlier this year, it was reported that Drew McIntyre's WWE deal is set to expire in 2024, and despite the fact he's back on WWE TV and in a prominent role, McIntyre has yet to ink a new deal. Even with Drew challenging for the World Heavyweight Championship at Crown Jewel, his current deal is still set to expire in early 2024, and we wonder if that'll influence the booking for his match with Seth Rollins. Back to NXT, as this week's show was night 1 of Halloween Havoc and featured WWE's resident ghost hunters, Shotzi and Scarlett, as the hosts of the evening. It was just a few weeks back that Shotzi joined Booker T and Vic Joseph on commentary and announced that she and Scarlett would be hosts, and the pair dressed to impress. Scarlett, dressed in a pink gown as Marie Antoinette, was quite the contrast to Shotzi's costume as Jamie Clayton's version of Pinhead from the most recent Hellraiser movie. The pair kicked off the show by announcing that the Devil's Playground match between Roxanne Perez and Kiana James would be our opening bout in what was quite the homecoming for Scarlett. While Shotzi appeared a few weeks back, this was Scarlett's first NXT appearance since July 2021, when she accompanied Karrion Kross to the ring for a match against Johnny Gargano. Her appearance this week came 833 days after Scarlett last appeared for the Gold brand, and while she's now established on SmackDown, expect to see more of Scarlett and Shotzi with NXT Halloween Havoc Night 2 next week. More from NXT Halloween Havoc, as Nathan Frazier was on last night's show and had his sights set on Dominik Mysterio's North American Championship. In a news skit called Hard-Hitting Home Truths, Frazier spoke about the injury he suffered during a ladder match at last year's Halloween Havoc and how he thought his career would be over. Instead, Frazier was out of action for 7 months but is now back in the ring, and in his segment, demanded a title match against Mysterio for next week's Halloween Havoc Night 2. Frazier and Mysterio were involved in a backstage altercation during last week's Raw, which saw the pair trade fists, and would also brawl during last week's episode of NXT. Now Frazier intends to become the new NXT North American Champion, but with Dominik having the Judgment Day to count down, a title win will not come easy for the British superstar. Do you think Nathan Frazier can dethrone Dominik, or will the might of the Judgment Day be too much? Sound off in the comments below. Lexis King made his long-awaited debut on this week's NXT, and after beating down Dante Chen throughout the match, King hit a swinging DDT off the second rope to get the win. A fairly standard squash match, King certainly looked more polished than the typical newcomer to NXT, but he also has higher expectations on him due to his pedigree and AEW history. The name change and distancing himself from his father Brian Pillman gives King the chance to establish himself in NXT, charting a course similar to Eddie Thorpe, who changed his name from Carl Fredericks when he joined the brand. King had an entrance fitting his new name as he appeared sitting on a throne before decreeing that Brian Pillman is dead, long live Lexis King. Rather than a crown, this King wore a bandana for his match, which came off his head after about a minute, so it's probably for the best that he leaves that off for future matches. No one truly knows King's full potential yet, and while his new name may not be the best of gimmicks on its own, it'll allow him to build a legacy separate from his talented, if not controversial, father. King's win was never in doubt given that this was his debut, and what do you think of this match? Let us know down below. After his exit from AEW last month, rumors sprang up that CM Punk would be returning to WWE, but the company turned down Punk's offer to return earlier this month. While this may be the case, this week's Raw once again saw several nods to the former AEW World Champion, or at least that's what some fans believe to be the case. When Shinsuke Nakamura used the words "set me free" in his promo, many fans pointed to those 3 words being used in Punk's theme song, and hence took it as a nod to a Punk comeback. Rhea Ripley added fuel to the fire when she said she had something to "get off my chest," which had fans pointing at Punk's June 2011 pipe bomb that uses the same phrase. While some are seeing these as teases, it should be stressed that we are not suggesting that Punk is returning to WWE, and it appears that this is a case of fans reading too much into things. WWE may not be lining up to sign Punk to a new deal, but the NWA might, as Billy Corgan laid out what Punk could expect during an episode of the Mat Men podcast. He said, "That man loves professional wrestling. He may not love the professional wrestling business, but he loves professional wrestling. My only appeal to Punk would be, if you want to have some fun, I can't pay you what you're worth, but if you want to have some fun, come have some fun in the NWA. We'll kick we'll have some laughs, and I'll buy you a vegan sandwich." While the NWA has shown interest in Punk, who was at a recent Impact taping, WWE isn't interested. And sometimes a phrase used on TV is just a phrase and nothing more. In the 43 days since the launch of TKO Group Holdings, questions have arisen about WWE's future and the future of those who are competing in the ring today. WWE has been doing immensely well from a business side of things, with PLEs often breaking records, but with a change of leadership has also come a change in the way contracts are handled. Fightful Select reports that WWE has a ton of contracts coming up in 2024, but the method for renewals has been different lately, with talent yet to be approached. They note, "Fightful has learned that numerous talent, including several top stars, have not been approached for contract extensions. WWE signed dozens of wrestlers to new deals in 2019 that are expiring, but also some that were shorter term are coming due in 2024. WWE has top talent with expiring deals all throughout the year. Most of the talent we've spoken to were of the belief that the recent merger with Endeavor will kickstart a lot of the contract talks, and that several of them are waiting to see what the offers are like when that happens, but it hasn't happened yet. There have been a few negotiations here and there, but usually with a talent who approached WWE for raises." It was added that WWE talent have shown curiosity about this change and have discussed what this could signify for their upcoming negotiations about new deals. Many have been wondering whether the fact they've not been approached yet is a sign that the offers made will be raised, lowered, or consistent with their prior agreements prior to TKO's launch. As previously reported, Sheamus is just one of the names whose deals are due to expire next year. And what will WWE's roster look like in 12 months? Only time will tell. More from NXT Halloween Havoc as Kiana James vs. Roxanne Perez started the action with a Devil's Playground match, which was mostly contested at ringside. In the end, Perez, with a Freddy Krueger-themed attire, got the win over James, who was left with a visible bump on her forehead, showing that the pair held nothing back in this match. In the Women's Breakout Tournament semifinals, Kelani Jordan defeated Arianna Grace, while Lola Vice bested Carmen Petrovic in results that were never much in doubt. Next week, we'll see Jordan face Vice in the finals, with the winner earning an NXT Women's title match. And who do you expect to see emerge victorious in this tournament? In a lights-out match, Blair Davenport defeated Gigi Dolin, and while the pair clicked as competitors, several spots took too long, likely affected by the dark lighting. Davenport needed this win more, as she remains one of NXT's more interesting stars, and she'll need more wins like this to build credibility en route to the NXT Women's title. A competitive match saw Chase U and the family compete for the NXT Tag Team Championships, and it was JC Jane who proved to be the difference maker in the match. Jane tried to get Andre Chase to cheat to win, but he refused, and Jane would take an accidental bump off the apron. That distracted Tony D'Angelo enough for him to get hit with a sunset flip and for Chase U to get the win in a fun match that had fast and heavy action throughout, aided by an invested crowd. It's a shame to see the family lose the titles so soon, but this win has been a long time coming for Chase U, who have gotten over through sheer dedication to the gimmick. It's especially good to see Duke Hudson get a big win after a rocky road in the 3.5 years since he signed, and now it's he and Andre Chase that all NXT tag teams have their eye on. So that was NXT Halloween Havoc Night 1, which felt like an emphatic statement, especially after what some have come to see as over-reliance on main roster talent. This show put the focus squarely back on the talented NXT roster, delivering shocking title changes, fantastic action, and a direction to the future that shows the longevity of the product. This show wasn't perfect, but it was two of the most exciting hours NXT ever produced, and highlighted the women's division in a way no other WWE show has in years. The majority of the show was driven by a well-earned respect for the women's roster, which is arguably outshining the men, and expect that to continue even with Becky Lynch finishing her time. The NXT tag title change was a welcome surprise as Chase U has finally made it, and Night 2 will have a tough act to follow next week. Even with Carmelo Hayes versus Ilya Dragunov and Dominik Mysterio versus Nathan Frazier, it'll be hard to outdo this week, but if this week is any indicator, fans should have plenty of faith in Shawn Michaels and his team. Last December, Mandy Rose was let go from her WWE contract due to the nature of the content posted behind her paywall just one day after losing the NXT Women's Championship. Rose was reportedly never given the opportunity to take the content down prior to her release, and in the 10 months since then, she's built up her brand in a big way. Now though, the Toxic Attraction alum is ready to make her first wrestling-related appearance since being released, as Rose will be at WrestleCade weekend in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. The convention will last from November 24th to the 26th, and we'll have to see if this is the first of many wrestling-related appearances for Rose, and possibly the start of an in-ring return. More from NXT as Tiffany Stratton has quickly risen through the ranks of the Gold brand to become a top star, but an interaction at a main roster live event has had everybody talking. During the live event, a fan can be heard yelling at Stratton, and after the fan tells Stratton that she sucks, the irate Tiffany hits back saying, "You suck my ass." Since losing the NXT Women's title to Becky Lynch on September 12th, Stratton has been winless on TV and at live events, and Stratton has spoken about being ready for the main roster. It remains to be seen what's next for the former champion, but whatever comes, we doubt this fan will forget this fiery exchange with the NXT superstar. With his partner Eric on the injured list, Viking Raider Ivar has been proving his skills as a single star, which hasn't gone unnoticed by WWE. But what does the future hold for Eric? In a update from Fightful Select, it's noted that Eric isn't expected back anytime soon, and while that's bad news for him, it'll allow Ivar plenty of time to continue to prove himself to management. If you've been at ringside during a Cody Rhodes match, you'll know that he loves interacting with fans, often stopping to take photos with the WWE Universe who love the American Nightmare. After this week's Raw, Rhodes was once again appreciative to the fans as he gave one fan an extra special present in the form of a very special autograph. When the cameras stopped rolling, Rhodes signed an entire table and gifted it for a young fan who was sat in the crowd, and Jey Uso presented the table to the lucky recipient. Rhodes joked that due to legal reasons, he needs everyone to vouch for him and say he didn't give a table to a young fan, but that didn't stop several clips of his generous act surfacing online. Cody Rhodes has a special connection with WWE fans, which is far different from the hostile response he received from AEW's audience, and we're sure this fan will never forget his experience at Raw. We mentioned that WWE isn't interested in working with CM Punk, but one name the promotion has a close eye on is Will Ospreay, whose New Japan contract will expire in February 2024. On Wrestling Observer Radio, it was confirmed that WWE is absolutely after him, though it was also noted that everyone would love the opportunity to sign the British star. Ospreay has said that he considers a move to WWE a possibility, but has also spoken in the past about enjoying his work with AEW and has had nothing but praise for Impact during his recent time there. The IWGP US UK Heavyweight Champion has hired agent Barry Bloom to help with his next contract talks, and no matter where he goes next, Will Ospreay is in very high demand. Since launching, AEW has become home to several former WWE names, both on screen and backstage, and now a former WWE Tag Champion is working behind the scenes. During an appearance on Wrestling with Johners, Scotty 2 Hotty confirmed that he has joined AEW as a producer, which will see him work on Dynamite, Collision, Rampage, and the ROH brand. Scotty previously worked as a trainer for WWE from 2016 to 2021 and focused on the NXT brand at the Performance Center. But now he's taking his experience to AEW with his new backstage role. Now PW Insider reports that WWE talents had some trouble getting to Raw this week. It wasn't noted which talents had these issues, but it appears that there was a problem. We've not heard anything about WWE having to change any plans for Raw this week due to travel issues. We'll update this story and produce a new article if that news comes to light. And we're ending with The Rock, and when a recent waxwork of the Great One was revealed in Paris, France, many noticed that the skin tone seemed a lot lighter than the actual Brahma bull. This very pale-looking Rock has since gone viral, earning the Grevin Museum some publicity they probably wish they didn't have, but now plans are in motion to fix things. After The Rock posted on Instagram that he plans to work with the Grevin Museum, the site of the waxwork, a spokesperson confirmed to TMZ that the Great One is indeed working with them. It was added that they hope for the waxwork to be remedied as quickly as possible, so this very pale-looking Dwayne Johnson isn't expected to stay like this for much longer.